His birthday just happened. It's a day before mine. Just by that alone, I think that this is going to be a great conversation. Conor Corrigan is with me. Obviously, you know what he's doing in the sports media space right now, associate director at ESPN. Birthday was November 11th. Mine is the 12th. Conor does more than that as far as working. He also has the job title of being a husband and being a dad of two daughters. So we're going to have fun exploring his life in sort of a well-rounded look, not just talk about his career. Obviously, we'll get into that, but learn about what he's like from a human standpoint on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley with Tennis Channel and other media outlets. Conor, I know you've watched a couple of these before, and I got to say, man, I'm looking forward to having you on as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. You've interviewed a lot of my mentors, friends from the Pac-12, from ESPN, from all over. So it's a privilege. I appreciate it.
Well, I think it goes right back at you. I am privileged to have you on because I see a star in the making. And I wanted to start here as we get this conversation going. You've got two daughters. What is it like keeping up with them running around the house? I know they're young. How does that keep you young?
It's in this industry we work such crazy schedules. Sometimes it's usually when I'm not at work I'm with them. So it definitely there are no days off. It is completely exhausting, but I wouldn't change it for the world. They're adorable and just the best. So it's been, there's nothing like it. I have two brothers. I knew absolutely nothing about what it would be to raise a little girl, and now I have two of them. So it's, I'm learning a lot still, but I'm really enjoying it. So.
Being a dad and being a girl dad, how has that changed your perspective and given you an added element of insight into the business, in the way in which you maneuver and the way in which that might help you, having that added part of your life?
Well, it's you learn. We sacrifice so much, our time, just to work in this industry and have, I say all the time, this beats having a real job. I love what I do. There's nothing like it. But we do sacrifice our time with our families, holidays, all of these things, right? So, becoming a father is really, makes you think a lot more about what your priorities are. And you can do everything you can to be there for every game, every show, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is taking care of yours and being there for them. So when I'm not in Bristol, well, we live up in West Hartford, I'm taking the girls out to do whatever, and you know trying to be the best that I can be. So while also I'm working on getting them a little more interested in sports too. They're still young, but we got the little Papa Shot hoop down in the basement. I'm a South Carolina alum, so if they both end up playing for Dawn Staley one day, I'll be really happy with that.
What is it going to be like for you as you see them grow and your approach to teaching them about sports? And are you going to be one in which you let them sort of go down that path on their own? Or do you say, hey, this is what you need to do. You're going to love this. And let's do this together. Let's get better. Let's play basketball. Let's do other things as well.
I think they're kids. They're going to be who they are. If they're not interested, you're not going to force them into it. Obviously, like I grew up playing basketball, football, lacrosse, soccer. So I think our 2-year-old is an extremely active child. I think she will benefit from whether it's soccer or gymnastics, whatever we put her in first. I think that'll be a good way to burn some energy off. So um, I think if I had to predict, she'll probably be the athlete. So, but time will tell if that's not what she wants to do. If she wants to, dance, or she has other interests, then that's what she'll do. So,
As your kids rapidly grow, and obviously with all the professional responsibilities that you have at ESPN and beyond. With that said, what part of you, Conor, hasn't grown up, and that's okay. That you're okay with that, and that's actually well received.
um, that's a tough question. I mean, you still have, you know, your interests, outside of work, right? Like, I still, like to, beyond hanging out and watching a game, like I got some high school buddies who I still keep in touch with. We'll hop on, play some Call of Duty, whatever, every once in a while. You got to decompress somehow. You're in a control room environment. Things are tense. You're trying to be perfect. You're trying to make everything happen. You come home, you're taking care of your family. One or two nights a week, you gotta, you know, have a little fun, on your own terms. So
Yeah, like you said, it's so important to unplug. How do you, from a career standpoint, reassure yourself that you're doing a good job, that you're on the path to where you want to go?
but one of the best things about ESPN, is that they are so constant and consistent with feedback. And obviously we have, our directing department now includes live event and studio directors. So we have, probably 70 or 80 directors who are, from all over. Some of them have come from RSN, some of them from local news, some of them are, 30-year event guys, so we have this wealth of knowledge and experience kind of at our fingertips. And now that we've brought all of these event people in the last couple of years, it's really kind of expanded our reach. And it's created a new level, because what we've done is, I'm one of there's a handful of us in our department right now who will do studio and Remy, which is, an event, remotely integrated from Bristol, right? So as those events have, grown and increased in size and magnitude, we're seeing more and more of these, big time directors who are doing big time college football and NBA and NHL on the road now coming in, working in Bristol, and just that experience of being around them and what they expect, because their expectations are that of, we're going to treat this game like it's, the CFP championship game. It's trying to live up to those expectations. And, it can be a little bit of pressure at times, but at the same time, it also forces you to be really accountable with yourself. And, they will not hesitate if you make a mistake to let you know about it, but also, treat it as a teaching moment, not just a, get this guy off my show. It's like, hey, they're very good and very deliberate with feedback. So, of course, like anything, there's a learning curve. You take your lumps along the way, but it's where I was at, coming from the Pac-12 network to where I am here is night and day. I've learned so much in the last 4 years. It's incredible. So,
What are those big things that you have learned since coming from Pac-12 networks to ESPN that you notice are some of your more recognizable attributes in which you've grown the most?
I think, well, first of all, when you come to a place like ESPN, the resources jump up enormously. Pac-12 was, a full network that serviced 6 regionals and a national. And, we did studio shows. I was directing a couple things there, Sports Report, Inside Pac-12 Football, some digital stuff. Then you come to ESPN and you walk in that NFL studio, you walk in the Sports Center studio, you see all these monitors and lights and virtual and, all of these things. You get on a game or a mode, and they say, hey, it's the AD's job, coordinate an E&G shoot, find 10 locations around this campus or this city, work with a camera operator, go out, shoot some things. We'll use it for billboards. We'll use it for a scene setter. We'll use it for all of these things. So your options, to be creative and to have an impact on the show just, are exponential compared to what they are other places. So
When you consider the way in which you're able to be creative, what about your creativity, Conor, and the way in which you approach that distinguishes itself from others in the way in which you're hoping that it stands out?
I think it is, in a lot of ways, it depends on the show. Obviously, I am a college football nut. I love it. I always have. So when I get an opportunity to, whether it's designing a studio in bump, or trying to go into archive scenics looking for some way to spice up a show, whether that's with a something to just go behind a logo fly or a, a locator or something like that. You have, what directors are, at our very core, we're supposed to execute shows, right? Producers are in charge of content, but I think the really great directors, you know, like to exercise their right to contribute to that as well. So, if we're doing a highlight from the Packers versus Cowboys game this last week, what's the storyline there? Storyline is Aaron Rodgers, had his best game of the season. Is are the Packers back? So whether they are or not, it's still an opportunity to dress up a studio move or do something like that. And make your impact there, even if it's something that's only on the screen for 3 or 4 seconds. So,
with that said, when you look at your own stories of your life and the storylines, and you extend that timeline beyond ESPN, if there were stories about your work ethic that would indicate the success that you have gone on to have, what are those stories? What are those anecdotes that would show me, even when you were at South Carolina, that Conor is in this business for the good and he's going to make something happen no matter what? That showed early on in your life.
I think, first of all, I had a lot of great, my family, just the people around me, very influential, very hardworking people. They set a high standard, and in terms of their work ethic, and just integrity. So I would attribute a lot of my work ethic to them. And then also just having jobs. My first job was when I was 15 at Dairy Queen.
Wow.
I worked, I think I was getting $5.15 an hour, if I remember correctly. I think, which is crazy now. I saw a Target, they were starting people at like $17. But I worked for a moving company, which, talk about a lot of manual labor there. When I was freelancing, when I first moved to the Bay Area, I took a job that moved me out there. I was living with a cousin at the time, and I knew immediately the job wasn't going to be a good fit. So I started freelancing as a utility and a runner, and eventually an A2 and camera operator. And the great thing about freelancing is you are in control of your own schedule. The bad thing is sometimes those dates aren't very full, as I'm sure you know from your experience. So, I ended up supplementing that with, I drove Uber for a couple months at one point. There was a 3-week span where I was working construction with a buddy. I coached a lacrosse team. So you find ways to, at the time it was make ends meet, but also, things that interest you and fill out that schedule and kind of when I didn't have the work, that was, going and working a construction job as motivation to, figure it out and find more work. And eventually more opportunities opened up, and I could put all of that behind me. But, at that, 2-3 year span, there was a lot of filling in the gaps with random things that were, I look back and I have fond memories of it, but at the time, weren't exactly glamorous. So,
Why did you never give up on the dream, even though it came with adversity early on?
I just didn't see myself doing anything else. I got, I never wanted to, you know, I don't want to be a sales guy. I don't want to, work in, out there in the Bay Area. There's all these tech jobs. I didn't want to work for any of those places. And just being there, you know, whether it was running cable or picking up a camera or whatever it was, like you know, try to make the most of those opportunities. If you're there to do one job, doesn't mean you can't learn something else. So, eventually it led to a full-time job at the Pac-12, which, opened up all kinds of doors for me. That role kind of expanded over the years of my time there as people left and more responsibility fell onto me. So I just learned a ton in a very short amount of time, really. So, it was awesome.
When you think about those testing times and then you see where you are, how has that increased your gratitude for where you are, knowing what it took to break through in those early challenges that you mentioned?
I mean, it's always good to have perspective, right? And for a number of reasons, I moving from Columbia, South Carolina to San Francisco gives you a little perspective. You can't imagine two more opposite places. Both had their strengths and weaknesses, of course, but and just being working a blue collar job while also trying to break into the sports production industry. It just going from one to the next, day in, day out. You look at it and this still doesn't feel like work to me. I think about those days and now, and I'm just like, this still. I mean, not to say it always doesn't feel like work, because there are weeks where you were just you're there late night, you're back the next morning early. It's ESPN, and there's just so much going on all the time, and you honor your commitments to certain projects, and sometimes they don't always mesh scheduling wise. So but still, it's you know you work a couple jobs like that. By comparison, this is fun. So
It doesn't feel like work, and the fact is you're able to really inject your personality and who you really want to be in your work. And with that said, and Conor Corrigan is with me, Associate Director of ESPN, I'm Bryan Fenley. The idea of how much of your sense of self do you find in your work? Do you attach to your work? What is that like?
I think a lot. I mean, this is something I've wanted to do for as long as I can remember. I take a lot of pride in working at ESPN, and having made it to this level. It's even on my off days, I'm always still thinking about it. But at the same time, when you talk about you know um, identity, you still have to, I mean, we talked about being a father. Like, there is no more important job than that. So I love to, I love what I do. I love working there. I love, you know, going in and doing a game, doing a studio show. I'm generally excited when I go to work, but at the same time, I'm also excited to come home and be dad, and that's always going to be the priority. And as my girls grow, we'll make sure that I'm always making the right time. No matter how busy I am at work, even if that means working till 3 in the morning and getting up and taking them to daycare, which I have done. But yeah, that's what's really important. So
What is it about those tenets that you want to instill in your kids, that you want to make sure at this age, those formative years, that they hang on to for the rest of their lives?
just that, the importance of being a family. To put it short, I mean, it's I'm incredibly blessed to have two awesome parents. Just my extended family is amazing. My wife's family is amazing. It's something we all value a ton. We spend as much time together as possible. It was a huge part of us moving back to the East Coast, was to spend more time with them. So obviously this opportunity helped. So there's nothing better. Even you can, spend a lot of time hanging out and doing whatever. But I think back to growing up in, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. Had a bunch of family in Charlottesville. We would go up there once, twice a month. A lot of times on weekends, when, like, in high school, I probably would have been rather doing something else. But I look back at those times and I'm like, wow, this was great. I didn't miss anything. But we were all hanging out. That's what I remember. So um,
How
yeah.
important is loyalty to you? When I hear you talk about your family and the way in which you all stay connected, the way in which you stay connected to your high school buddies as well, and you guys are decompressing, playing video games. But for you, how high up on your personal hierarchy is loyalty?
The top. I mean, what's better than that?
It has to be.
uh, don't know what else to say. That's it. Whether that's to my family, my wife, my job, it- the top.
Somebody who is way at the top, your wife, the ally that she's been for you through this journey of yours, where would you be without her?
I don't know. You know, she's amazing. She's an amazing mom. We we moved here January of 2019. We got married 4 months later. We bought a house 6 months after that, and then had our first daughter the next uh, April. So all within a year, we also bought a house. I don't know if I said that. We did all those things, and it was a lot. But you know, she was holding it down. I was trying to acclimate to this job, to Connecticut. She's made tremendous personal sacrifices so I can live my dream and have this career. And she has a job too. She works really hard, so she's amazing. Um,
She's
we're
been there for you. How have you been there for her?
just trying to be, when I'm not working, just trying to be as helpful as I can be. We all know who the boss is, but I'm just whether it's um, taking the girls off her plate for a couple hours. If I have if I'm working night, I'll say, hey, I'll take them all day. You go do what you have to do. Like to my point earlier about having some time to decompress. We all need that, especially her. She deserves it. So
You guys make for a great family, and I'm going to hold you to this. In 17, 18 years, Don Staley coaching South Carolina, I expect a couple 5 stars coming out of the Corrigan household. But
right.
either way, one of the really neat parts of this conversation is as we wrap this up, Connor, is the fact is learning about you on a deep level and the loyalty and what you overcame to get to this position and those who were in your court and those who saw something in you before maybe you saw it in yourself. And so harnessing that with such beautiful transparency from you made this conversation what it was. And so I'm so grateful, Connor, for your time, for your story. And I'm glad I got this done now because you are a star on the rise. And before long, it's going to be hard to get a hold of you. So I'm grateful that we did this. I'm Bryan Fenley. Connor, thanks so much, man. Appreciate this.
Thank you, Brian. Keep up the great work. I love seeing these. It's an honor.